بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Welcome, dear brothers and sisters, to this presentation today. Today, inshallah ta'ala, Shaykh Nomaan and I will be sharing with you some reflections and share with you some highlights from a recent trip. And I'm very grateful for everyone to be here today. But before we begin, I just wanted to say that the main objective of this presentation is, one, to fill you in and try to share with you some of the highlights of this trip due to its significance and importance, I think, for the Muslims living in the West. I think this is one of the most impactful events in our lives, and of course we can talk later as to why Shaykh Nomaan and I felt like we needed to go in person and be with them. But one of the main reasons we want to report back to you is because, one, we made a promise, we made a pledge to our brothers and sisters who were impacted by this, not only the 50 who passed away, may Allah have mercy on them, not only the martyrs, but also their families and the entire community, that we wanted to humanize these individuals. They're not just merely a number or a statistic. These are people, wallahi, some of us, I feel like some of them are better than us. As a community, they are better than us in many ways. And this could have happened to any one of us, right? So we were able to relate to them. So we wanted to make sure that you also relate to them on a more personal level and realize how much we have in common with them. So that's one of the objectives. And then there are, of course, lessons for us to learn from this. And also it is important for us to have these conversations and continue to have these conversations so that we can be mindful of the fact that we can't get too comfortable and realize that we have to take our lives, our security, our identity seriously and be very protective of it and be vigilant. And the third point is that I wanted to make is for you to see also some very empowering and inspirational stories and moments that reaffirm the greatness of this religion of ours. These individuals were not targeted because of their ethnicities or because of their gender or because of they were targeted because of their deen, because of their they were Muslims Muslim immigrants. That's why they were targeted, and they were targeted in one of the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, there's an undergoing investigation. We may not be able to share all the information. Some of the information may not be as accurate as we would wanted it to be, but we're just going to share what we know. Unfortunately, the two masajid that were targeted were not the only two targets. It looks like they were not the only two targets, but alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought an end to his plot at the Linwood Masjid, which was the second and the smaller of the only two masjids in the entire city of Christchurch, New Zealand. So I would want this to be a conversation, inshallah, between me and Shaykh Nomaan. You can ask questions, you can ask for clarifications, and inshallah ta'ala, let's begin. Shaykh Nomaan, welcome. So this is going to be more like
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Shaykh Faqih. Thank you for organizing this and having us here. But I reiterate everything Shaykh Faqih said. And from the point when we were thinking about this trip, I think we just wanted to be there for our Muslim brothers and sisters and the community. We got hint from over there that there's a huge crisis. People are not able to process what has happened. And there's a need So as soon as we found out, Shaykh Faqih spoke with me, and then we spoke with a few other imams. And alhamdulillah, the way things happened, it was just a miracle for us to be able to be there, right? And I think one point that I can say, do you have that little cover? Because I can take that. One thing that made this journey real for us was at Los Angeles International Airport. I think that's when we didn't understand the gravity of what was about to happen until we arrived at the counter at LAX, at the Air New Zealand counter, and we saw this brother who we thought was Muslim, and when we looked at the name tag, his name was Mohammed, Rahim or Rahim. And he saw myself, Shaykh Faqih, and Dr. Ahmed Subh, and later Imam Omar Suleiman joined us as well at the counter. And when we saw him, we were having a conversation about our seats and what have you. And he asked why we were going. So we told him that we're going there to console the aggrieved, partake in the burial, prayer, and all the rituals associated with the end of life, and just be with the families. And then and there he started tearing up. He started crying. And I reached across the counter, I held onto his hand and shoulder, and he told us that what you're doing is so noble, and I can't go there myself, but my first cousin passed away. 23-year-old or 26-year-old, 27-year-old Sayyid Arib Ahmed. He said he's my dad's brother's son, and I feel that I can't do anything, and I'm so honored to know that you guys are going. And then, his manager came out. She started tearing up because she didn't know that he was affected by this. And then all of a sudden, we were all just with one another, just letting the situation just soak in. And then and there, we just realized that, wow, not just our Muslim communities, but these are everyday people who are affected by this. And this person, may Allah bless him and his loved one, Sayyid Arib, is somebody who was there in Pakistan, from Pakistan in New Zealand, working for PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. He told us about his story, how his parents he was the only son of his parents, providing livelihood while living in Christchurch, sending home money for his parents back home, and he was just waiting to be repatriated back. His cousin with us, he took us all the way through security. I mean, he was just so touched all the way to the lounge, all the way to the door of the airplane, seeing us all the way through, and then just hugging and kissing us, just thanking us, So I think that first moment was very emotional for everybody. That really gave us a reality check as to what we're about to encounter as soon as we land. And, when we were all sitting on the plane, from the air hostesses, the manager, the captain, they all came to us. And they offered, one by one, I don't remember, countless staff members of Air New Zealand came and offered their condolences. They were honored by the fact that people from the community here in Los Angeles, especially across the US with Imam Omar Suleiman as well, joining us, were thinking about going and going in reality. One by one, they just came. There was a Muslimah amongst the staff members. She also came, thanked us, and told us that all the meat served on the plane is halal, from the chicken and the beef and what have you. I mean, they upgraded us. They did so much that we were just not expecting anything.
Yeah. So we eventually, we flew out of Los Angeles. It's 13 and a half hours flight. We reached Auckland, which is the largest city in the in the island, in the New Zealand. New Zealand is split into two major islands. So we flew into it, and then we went. As soon as we got to our gate, we were actually greeted by Air New Zealand staff that were actually waiting for us, and they escorted us all the way. Waited for us until we made our Fajr. We got there Fajr time, just in time before Fajr. We were able to make our Fajr prayer at the airport. They have a section that was designated for Muslims. And then we were escorted all the way to the domestic flight lounge, domestic flight terminal. And we reached our gate about an hour before the flight. And as soon as we reached the gate, we realized that there was a large number of people there who were going to Christchurch. New Zealanders, people from out of the country, from South Africa, from Europe, from Southeast Asia, from Australia. There was a large number of people, and also people flying domestic there. And while we were standing there just trying to freshen up and maybe get coffee or something, someone recognized Shaykh Umar Sulaiman and started having conversations with him, and they realized we were going to Christchurch. They were extremely moved and grateful, and one of them in particular decided just to stay with us for the rest of the for the rest of that day. And he helped us a lot. He got us Uber, he got us around. So we flew to Christchurch, and we arrived there right around 9:50, right? And immediately from the airport, we started getting messages that there is ghusl, washing of a body, that there will be burials that day. We were told that 6 bodies were buried the day before, including the body of the youngest victim of this 3-year-old Mu'adh. So we were, the Malaysian consulate or embassy sent us a car to pick us up. May Allah bless them. And then we went to the cemetery, where we now started getting bodies to come, and we started to participate in Salatul Janazah. And then some familiar names that we read about started to arrive. And that's when it hit us. That's when we, and one of the most powerful moments for me, as early moments that just made the whole ordeal, made it very, very, one thing maybe a lot of people don't realize, this is one of my biggest nightmares, just to see my community members in a situation like this. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve our community in all Muslim communities. So we arrived the grave to the cemetery, and then they have this huge tent right here. This is the tent, massive tent, maybe large enough to accommodate maybe 2,000 people maybe. And that's where they had the bodies brought. So we made Salatul Janazah. We started making Salatul Janazah, and we also met some of the people that we saw being interviewed, like Imam Abdul Latif, the Imam of the Linwood Masjid, who was leading the Salah. They were in the second rak'ah when the shooting at that location started. And one thing that struck us right away was they were visibly and obviously very shocked, and they were hurt, they were in pain. But the iman, Shaykh, one thing that shook me was just that the amount of certainty and faith that they had. Like it was unlike anything I've seen in my life. The way they exercised sabr, and the way they held themselves together, and also the way they embraced one another, right? You have families of victims, whether they have loved ones who are in critical condition, or they have loved ones who have passed away and it's not their turn, or they have even the ones who have buried their dead the day before they were there, right? Comforting one another, embracing one another, and you could see the diversity in the community, right? Malaysians, Singapore, you know, New Zealanders, indigenous Maoris, East Africans, West Africans, Northern Africans, Egyptians, Yemenis, you know, people from Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, Palestinians, Jordanians, Iraqis, Syrians, you know, Emiratis. I mean, just people from all over, Indians, Pakistanis, you know, just from all over. What brought them all together is La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, and this attack on their religion. And one thing that we have to remember, brothers and sisters, is that this message was not sent to that community, it was sent to all of us. This was meant to hit us all, right? And to intimidate us all and to scare us all. So they came together, and one janazah after another came. And then you know, the janazah of the brother Haji Dawood Nabi, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him, the first martyr, you know, arrived. By the way, for those, this is Arib Sayyid, the relative of one of our community members, one of our local community members. So the janazah of maybe the most famous figure showed up. It was accompanied by, you know, a group of bikers who came to show respect, and this group right here, and this is their pastor right there. Right? They came, and it caught my attention that they were led by a Muslim brother who's from the indigenous people of New Zealand, an older gentleman. So, you know, I approached him and I asked him his name. His name is Isa, and it turned out that Haji Dawood Nabi, the Afghan man, 71-year-old, was the person that gave him Shahada 37 years ago. Right? He said, this man introduced me to Islam 37 years ago.
He said he was his spiritual father.
Yeah. Right? So you could see how this community is well connected. Then the last janazah of the day was, and again, every single one of them has an amazing story. We won't be able to share with you all the stories. We don't even know all the stories, right? But the last janazah, they asked Shaykh Umar Sulaiman to lead the prayer. It was the janazah of Hadiq Tirmidhi. His parents are from Malaysia. Malaysian 17-year-old was in the masjid with his family. His father was critically wounded and he was recovering, and he was brought on a wheelchair, and he himself didn't survive the shooting and he died. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. And that is right there, his body, Shaykh Umar Sulaiman right there. You know, basically the father requested him to lead the salah, and he led the salah. And it was, I think, one of the longest prayers. You could see that one of the longest prayers. And one thing happened is Shaykh Nomaan and I were able to get through with the family at the request of the family, that the shuyukh that came from America to join them for the burial, and we had the opportunity to actually witness his body being lowered into the grave. And because his father couldn't go down to see him, they uncovered his face for his father to take one more look at him before they put the lid on. And that's when Shaykh Nomaan and I saw something that I think will stay in our memories for a long time. Shaykh, you wanna?
Yeah, I think one thing was amazing when they opened the shroud from his face, so the father, who was in the wheelchair, could see him for one last time, and his younger special needs brother Harith. You can see him for the one last time. When they uncovered his face, it was as if he was just asleep, right? What I mean by that is, myself and I'm sure many others have washed the bodies of deceased loved ones. The body seems to shrink. Blood is no longer present in the cheeks or the face or the lips. But this person, Muhammad Hazik Tirmidhi, may Allah be pleased with him, his skin was full. You could see the blood under his flesh. You could see the freshness of his lips. You could see as if he was just
Sleeping.
Yeah. And that's it. And at that time, Shaykh Yahya Ibrahim from Perth, Australia, who was also with us, flew in from Perth. He was like one of the one of the guides with us. He read that. I could hear him recite that verse of the Quran saying, Bal ahya. Nay, they are not dead, but they are living.
They're alive. Yes. Allah is alive.
And I've probably washed over 100 bodies and, in the mortuaries and stuff like that, but I've never witnessed that. I've never washed the body of someone who was martyred. And when I saw his face and Shaykh Yahya reciting that verse,
you could see something different, yeah. There was something different about them.
And then, right before since we're on our brother Muhammad Hazik, we went to their home the day we left on Saturday morning, myself, Shaykh Yahya, and Shaykh Muhammad Faqih, and his mom, Marina. The reason I'm mentioning these names is that I want to make these stories personable. These are real people.
Yes.
With real mothers, real fathers, real siblings, real lives. There's no conspiracy about their deaths. This is all real. And their mentioning should be remembered, and we will make it a point to remind everyone about this community. So we met to meet the mom. She came to us, her name was Marina, with the father laying down on the bed because of his wounds. She said, how are we supposed to cope with something like this? How can we cope with something like this? And why did Allah chose our son for this? And although, we've all studied, we all said what we had to say, sometimes you're just blank at times. Then after a little while, we all shared. One thing I shared was that, first, Muhammad Hazik Tirmidhi, may Allah be pleased with him, was known to only your family as your son. Because Allah chose him to be the one to be martyred that day, he belongs to everybody in the world now. His life, and however long he lived, his dedication and devotion by arriving in the masjid as early as he did, in time to listen to the complete khutbah. Allah loved it so much, and Allah took the greatest sacrifice from his family so the world can remember him. The world can remember his name, recognize him, his sacrifice, and he died in Allah's house, listening to the khutbah. And he belongs to every one of us now. 17 years old, right? Grieving family. It's just speechless.
SubhanAllah. And it's amazing how, by the way, brothers and sisters, we do have child care service provided in the back. So you can see Brother Jamal if you need help with that. Inshallah, you can use that, utilize that. And I would like to welcome everyone here. Jazakumullah khairan, especially those who came from their Sunday services in churches. Thank you very much for being with us here today. As we remember these fallen heroes, actually rather those who rose, they did not fall. May Allah be pleased with them. So we finished that day, and then we had to go to visit people in the hospitals. So we went from there. I'm kind of trying to remember. Did we? I think we stopped. We lost our appetite, but I think we stopped to grab a bite real quick, and then we went to the hostels, to the main hospital there in Christchurch, where we were able to visit few families at the Christchurch hospital. Almost everyone that was wounded was there. There are, I think, one or two cases. There are two cases that I'm aware of that were very critical, that they had to be airlifted to Auckland to be treated there. It was a case of a father and a daughter. They were airlifted there. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them full and speedy recovery. So we were able to visit some of the wounded, and one of the most memorable moments, we all wanted the first person we met was this sister, Sister Alta. Yeah. She's the mother of her husband, and her son were both injured, and she was caring for them. She had just accepted Islam like 2 months prior, right? They had just moved. Her husband is Indonesian. They had just moved to New Zealand, and they were trying to settle. And her husband, her son were at Masjid al-Nur, I believe, when they were injured, and she was just there caring for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And she was very, very happy and excited to see American imams, people. She's originally from Texas, so Shaykh Umar Sulaiman is from Texas. She learned that we were from California, and you could see the impact of that on her. We sat with her for some time. Then we went to visit this young man who buried his father and his brother, his older brother, the day before. It's a family of Syrian refugees that moved to, this is his father. And here's another picture of his father. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. All three, were shot in Masjid al-Nur. The father and the older brother didn't make it. His brother Hamza didn't make it, but Zayd, on the other hand, survived. And mashallah, just the spirit. I mean, he was indeed devastated, but you could see that he is trying to strengthen himself and be there for his mother and for his sisters. Just it's a type of individual, young man, that you can't afford but to fall in love with. So much so that we had to visit him again the next day, and then we were able to see, I think, one more person before the visitation hours came to an end. So we left and we went and checked into our hotel. We spent the night there, and then next thing I know, Shaykh Nomaan and I are just up like 4 or 5 a.m. You can't sleep after a day like that. We barely got sleep, right? By the time we went to bed, it must have been close to midnight. And Shaykh, starting that night, every time now I close my eyes or I doze, I see Christchurch in my dream. So the next day was the day of Jum'ah. It was a very busy day for us. So we went to yes.
Yeah. It's noteworthy to mention about Zayd Hamza, Zayd Mustafa, his whole family. I don't know if everybody heard this part. They're refugees from Syria, right? Escaped oppression, tyranny in Syria to seek refuge in New Zealand. Safety, prosperity, being with family. And here they are, all three of them, Hamza, Zayd, and their dad, were shot. Father, son, died. And one son survived. Right? And he's the one whose picture was on the paper in his wheelchair at the grave. And it became iconic.
Between the two graves, subhanAllah. Yeah.
He was sitting between his father's grave on one side and his brother's grave on the other side. And Shaykh Faqih just said it. He's a resilient child. His mom was there other siblings there. His grandfather, maternal grandfather, we met him at the hospital. He's somebody who
Used
so
to live
happy
here.
He used to live here. He
In
said,
Southern
I used to
California.
live in Huntington Beach before, right? So a refugee family who was terrorized in New Zealand became victims of this massacre. Something for all of us to really reflect upon.
So now this is the second case of an individual who's directly related to someone from our community. Because I consider anyone who is still living in Southern California or lived for a long time in Southern California and went to our masajid or participated in supporting any of our institutions to be from our community. So this is now the second case of someone who's directly impacted by this. This is not indirect. This is his grandfather, right? And so and then there were more people that we found connections with. This makes you realize how real this is and how close this is. Just because it's in New Zealand and because it's far away, we think, well, what's the big deal? No, it's connected to us. There are people in our community who are directly or indirectly impacted by this.
Right. And that famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, right? مَثَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي تَوَادُّهِمْ وَتَرَاحُمِهِمْ. Right? The liking of the love and the mercy that the believing family has for one another is like one body. When one part aches, the entire body feels it. So I think this tragedy is indicative of that hadith of the Prophet ﷺ.
Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Right? Far-reaching, global effect, and something that we could not imagine. This other brother who's in the picture with the surviving brother, this is brother Muhammad Abbas. He was that angel from Auckland that we found on our flight from Auckland to Christchurch, who just somehow, naturally, organically, we felt we've known him for so many years, who was with us for that entire first day. And he told me about his story. He works for a private energy company in Auckland, and his company asked him to take as much time off necessary.
Subhanallah.
How many days possible?
Subhanallah. No.
However much time he needs to go help and serve his community in Christchurch. Christchurch Muslim population is only 3,000. And he was there on his second trip, and he said, I just had to go back after 5 days, and I'm going back now with you guys only for 14 hours. I need to come back at night so I could take care of some more business and then come back again. So these were people who were going back and forth, and he's the one who took us from the airport through that Malaysian high commission taxi and everything, So that was the first day. We got there on Thursday morning. On that day, we participated in the burial prayers of 9 people. And the day before, on Wednesday, 6 people were buried. Thursday, 9. And then on Friday, we participated in the burial prayers of 27 people. So that took the count to 42, with 8 of the martyrs, shuhada, victims, being repatriated back to their home countries. So Thursday night, like Shaykh Faqih was saying, when we were wrapping up, we just, trauma unparalleled, devastation unparalleled. We've never experienced anything like this in our lifetime. And it's also noteworthy to mention, I think you have a picture of him as well, that one of the Uber drivers we were taking in between, who was somebody who went to elementary, middle school, and high school, who was doing Uber just during this time, and I asked him, how are you affected by this? And then he started tearing up. He goes, you know that picture? That brother who charged the gunman at the Masjid Nur Mosque? I said, Brother Naeem Rashid? He goes, yes. He was my high school teacher.
Yeah.
He said, that guy was my high school teacher. I said, what can you tell me about him? He goes, he was an exemplary teacher. He taught us well, so kind, loving. And mind you, Brother Naeem Rashid not only perished himself, his own son, 21 years old.
24.
20?
24, Talha.
24, Talha. He also died as well. Both father and son died, leaving behind a wife and a mother.
When we went to visit one of the brothers whose picture became pretty much the icon of this event, and he became so famous and was presumed dead. Yes, he spoke highly of Talha. You know, he spoke highly of a lot of people, but he emphasized on Talha a lot. He said Talha was in the masjid for almost whenever he went to prayer, Talha was there. He said he used to go to the masjid for Fajr. He bought a bike. He used to bike to the masjid, and then eventually he saved money and he bought a small car so that he can be there for Fajr. Makes you feel, you know. And he was there early on the day of Jum'ah. He was there early enough to be caught. You know, may Allah have mercy on him.
Shaykh, on Thursday, when we first arrived and we're at the graveyard, I think you should share the story of the youngest victim, whose father we met, the youngest victim being Mu'adh Ibrahim, the 3-year-old son, whose father we met at the graveyard, at the cemetery, and when we met to hug him and give him our condolences, he started consoling us. He started consoling us, telling us that, don't worry, I am pleased with Allah's destiny. I am pleased with Allah's taking of my son. I will see my son in the gardens of paradise. I believe strongly in my heart that his life was not taken in vain.
SubhanAllah. You know, that was the moment I couldn't hold myself. When I, you know, Muad's dad, the younger, when I just remembered how I saw a picture of him holding his 3-year-old, waiting. And he kept telling me and telling the other shuyukh, you need to be strong. We need to be strong. This is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not going to break us. You know, this is the amr of Allah azza wa jal. I mean, just a level of a strength that I have not seen before. It's just, so when you see the interview with the wife of brother Naeem Rashid and the mother of Talha, and you see that strength in that famous interview, right? That is, she's not faking that. And I'm gonna say something inshallah ta'ala in a little bit about the women of that community. Just extraordinary, just amazing. You know, the mother of Hadiq, you know, the Malaysian sister, you know, Marina. Subhanallah, just she was telling us, what can you tell us from the story of the Sahaba? How could they? She said, when I felt what I felt after enduring what we have endured, I said to myself, the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ suffered much more. You know, what is it that helped them get through that? Maybe, can you tell us? Right? So I told her about the story of Sulaym, right? Who lost her brother. She lost, you know, eventually she lost one of her sons as well. You know, she lost her son also to a sickness. So when I told her the story, she's like, see? Wallahi ya Jama'ah. And she was about to cry, but then she stopped. She's like, you see? Right? So, and the father of Hadiq is just the amount of sabr and composure and, you know, and dignified calm. Right? Just their calm and their composure is something that I've never seen before. And it wasn't one or two or three individuals. It was like, it's a bunch of them. They're like that. The next day we had a long day, so we wanted to go, and Shaykh Nomaan wanted to visit a family whose loved one, was buried the day before. He's not. So we went looking for his. So we went looking for his shop, and this is his shop. This is Shaykh Nomaan. Just realizing that this is it, that we have reached our destination. Very excited and ecstatic, to find where it was. So we went and asked the lady who was working there about the family of this man, Junaid Ismail. He has just so much nur on his face, right? We wanted to know about his story. What was he like? So we went to visit his family, and we were greeted by his twin brother.
33 years old, his twin brother. brother right here lost his twin brother, and this brother was just broken. He literally said that it's as if half of me was taken. Right? Brother Junaid Ismail left behind 3 children. I believe it was 1, 3, and 5, or 1, 5, and 7.
Yeah, that's the oldest right there with Shaykh Nomaan. And that's the second oldest or second youngest. Right. And that's his youngest right there. And in the background, you see his mom next to her. You may not be able to see her. Shaykh Nomaan's head is blocking her. You see his grandmother.
Grandmother there too, yes.
So, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them. That was heartbreaking. His brother told us all about how they asked for his body, washed his body at home, and then laid him down there, right there in that room where his son is standing.
His twin brother said that there was no way I was not going to not wash my brother's body and not wash it except at my own home. He fought with city council to take the body from them, explaining to them that this is my twin brother, I need to do this my way. And city council had no choice because of his insistence and how adamant he was and how disturbed he was, because he said that this is half of me. There's no way except I'm going to take him to my house, wash him myself with my family, prepare the body here, and then we can take this body to forward to the graveyard for burial. So this is exactly, they honored his wishes, his desires. That dairy shop that this family owns, there was just thousands of flower bouquets laying inside, outside, just overflowing, you know. And this family was, we were especially requested by Imam Tahir Anwar from San Jose, because Junaid's wife was Imam Tahir's family's neighbor in England. So this was a family that migrated from the UK to New Zealand. And this devastation. And his twin brother says that my brother preceded me by himself to the masjid. I was 15 to 20 minutes behind him, and by the time I reached the masjid, the security police had cordoned off the street, and they didn't know what was going on, and he said that I noticed, which he later gathered was to be the killer, drove by after he was done, heading his way to the Linwood Mosque.
SubhanAllah. This is the site of, again, in case anyone thinks that this is not real, this is real. This is the site of the Linwood Masjid. It was blocked off. We couldn't get any closer. But that's in the back right there, that little house. That's the small masjid. And subhanAllah, it was the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the entrance was blocked. And then there was a side door on the left side. But the killer, when he came, he didn't find the main entrance open. There was plywood on it, so he goes the other way, the opposite way, and started shooting from outside. So anyways, that was how we started our day Jum'ah, and then we went to attend Salatul Jum'ah, that, you know, one of the, perhaps the largest gathering in the city of Christchurch, witnessed the Prime Minister being there. I didn't even realize that she was there until later on, until when she started speaking, and the Imam delivered his famous speech that you could look it up. And it was just, it feels like a dream to me right now. The family members of the deceased and the injured were brought and put in the front row, and then the imams and the shuyukh right behind them, and then the diplomats and the dignitaries were behind the imams and the shuyukh. They wanted to send a very strong message that this is a community that honors its religious leadership, and then it was everybody else, and then the Prime Minister was sitting on the side, away, and then after finishing Salatul Jum'ah, we went for Salatul Janaza, and they brought, where there was 27 bodies brought there. dignitaries representing Muslim community, Muslim countries came there. This is the Qatari ambassador. They were ambassadors from other countries. This is the Mufti of Australia, right there. Um, just it was a large janaza. Imams from Australia and from different parts of the Muslim world. That's Dr. Ali Qardaghi, the vice chair of one of the largest body of scholars in the Muslim world. And then upon finishing that, we went again back to the hospitals to visit the wounded. The next day before we left town, we were told on Friday that the brother who had his shahada finger pointing out like this when he was on a stretcher, right there, I asked about him, and I was told that he was deceased by someone there. I was initially told that he was not, and then I was told by someone that he was deceased. And I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yeah, I was there at the washing of the body. It was a mistaken identity." So I said, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." Later, when we asked one of the imams, he said, "No, he was there with us in Salat al-Janazah. He came. He's alive." So I said, "Can you put me in touch with him?" He said, "I will find you someone that can put you in touch with him." So and then we had an appointment with this amazing family, the family of Ata, and we want to tell you a little bit about this family, because what we experienced there is unlike anything we had experienced. Ata, 33 years old, Palestinian, born in Kuwait, moved with his family 24 years ago to New Zealand. Very successful. I mean, Shaykh Nomaan can tell you about his success story, inshallah, a father of two, a daughter and a boy. One thing that got to me was when his wife said he was too good to be true. When she praised him, and she was genuine in her description of his character. And then his mother spoke, and then the next day we met his father as well. This young man, the youth came for his, not only for his funeral, but when we went to visit his family, and you could see his impact on the youth. He was a great example for them, committed to his religion, very successful, dutiful to his parents. Just overall, he's got it all. And his wife was saying, "I knew that he didn't belong to this world," right? So, and they seem to be very, very content. His parents are just amazing. His father, Dr. Mohammed Alayan, earned his PhD from Oregon State in biochemistry, and his mother, Maysoon Salama, her brother is actually one of our community members. Her other brother is from Dallas area. This sister gave us a beautiful lesson and lecture. I've never heard anything like that before. We were there to comfort her, and she left me speechless. Wallahi, I could not speak after that. She left me speechless as she spoke about what happened. As she spoke about how when her father passed away, she felt it. When her mother passed away, she felt it. When her son Ata, whose name means giving, right? She said he was a gift. He was giving. He was Ata in every way. She said when he passed away, we realized that he passed away, but we didn't feel it. So she said, "I have a feeling that he's still alive." Though we saw his body, and the next day we buried him, right? She said he didn't look like he was dead. I could see that. I know my son is alive. And then she switched the topic. She started talking about how are our youth going to cope with this. We lost the best of our youth's mentors, right? So what can you do for us to help our youth overcome this? She's not talking about herself or about her grandchildren or about Ata's younger siblings. She's talking about the youth of the community. How can our ummah, cope with this and move forward, right? And I'm like, is this real, Shaykh? And I mean, we were all just in tears. We were shocked. Then the next day when we met the father again, just another amazing figure. He told me, let me tell you something about Ata. He was born on a Friday. He got married on a Friday. And he was murdered on a Friday. Right? I closed my eyes and I said, inshallah, he will be resurrected on a Friday, inshallah. Right?
Ata was an overachiever, and his greatest success was that he was martyred in the cause of Allah. That is the greatest success. Like one Sahabi, when he died, was about to die, fustu wa rabbil Kaaba. Right? I've succeeded because I've been accepted in the path. This was Ata. 33-year-old. He was a national goalie for a futsal team for New Zealand. Role model to many. Just like Shaykh Faqih says, the wife says the best husband, right? The best son-in-law that anybody can ask for. Parents, the best son anyone can ask for. Right? And again, arrived early to the masjid, just so he can listen to the entire khutbah. A successful IT professional who worked for Microsoft in New Zealand. Co-workers, you can read tons of articles about him. Just an everyday person who was exceptional in his own special way. Someone who the community looked upon. He was actually a role model that everybody is affected by. In fact, just like Shaykh said, the mom, rather than being concerned what's going to happen to my daughter-in-law, my grandson, my family, she's thinking about the youth of the community. Look at the selflessness of this family. They should be supported, but here she is concerned about the youth of the community. Right? She herself runs a successful daycare. The only Muslim daycare. There's 3 Muslim institutions in Christchurch. 2 masjids and this Muslim daycare, which has about 60 to 70 Muslim children in it. We went to that daycare, and it was close to this daycare where that merciless killer used to work out and train at that gym.
Yeah, that's where he hatched his plans. And the daycare or the preschool was his next target, had he not been stopped. Ata's parents were the founders of Masjid al-Nur, where
Yes.
and they were also the founders of An-Nur Academy, which has a daycare and it's a preschool. Sister Maysoon, Ata's mom, told us that she was calling and no one was answering, and she said that her husband finally responded to her, and he was being taken into the ER, right? Not knowing that whether he's going to survive or not. So she asked him, "Where's Ata? Where's our son?" He said, "Don't worry about our son. Go take care of the kids. Make sure that they're protected." And she said, "I realized that he passed away, that our son passed away when his father stopped asking about him."
They didn't receive confirmation that Ata had passed away except after 4 or 5 days. But after two days, the father stopped asking about, asking about their son, and in his mind he had this belief that he's already been martyred. And they received confirmation only after a few days after.
Yeah, last story I want Sheikh Nomaan to share with you is the story of this young man, 14-year-old. I saw Sheikh Umar Sulaiman standing next to a woman at a grave that had been where earlier in the day someone was buried. So I approached him, and it turned out to be his mother. Indonesia, right? Singapore, yeah, from Singapore. She was standing there content. She wasn't crying. She wasn't wailing. She was just sitting there calmly making dua. I didn't even realize. So I said, I personally thought maybe she's So I said, is this related to you? She said, that's my son. And I believe it was the only son, right? Okay, she had another second son, yeah. So I was asking Shaykh Umar Sulaiman, I said, why was she standing there? She wouldn't leave. She said, because she was told that once the person is buried, there will be questioned, and she wanted to be there while he's being questioned. So she was just sitting there making dua, just sitting on a chair making dua. Just so it's a community that was tested, and we saw why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them to be tested. We went to visit some other people who were wounded in this ordeal, so the last day before we left, we visited some families as well. The family of Osama Quakey, who is a Palestinian born and raised, born in Gaza but raised in Egypt. Married to an Egyptian. He left behind two daughters and a son, 1-year-old. His father is someone who memorized the Quran. Shaykh Yahya was telling us that he was reciting the Quran to them, the father. And he had spent all of his saving he had masters in construction engineering to move to New Zealand and for the betterment of his family. And subhanallah, they had just moved 2 months ago after years of and one of the things that his father told us was that he had an opportunity to go to Canada, and in one of the forms he had to basically say that there is great hardship in the country of his residence, and that life there is unbearable. And after spending a lot of money and paying for a lot of forms, he said, no, I'm not going to say something negative about the country in which I was brought up. I'm not going to speak. So he refused. And then he started this other process to go to New Zealand. That took about 2 years, and eventually when he went there 2 months later, he was chosen to be one of the martyrs in Masjid al-Nur. It's just stories like this, one after another. Another brother who was a small business owner, he left behind Salma, who was like 13 or 14, and Yusuf, who was about 11. Beautiful. He's from Egypt, moved 14 years ago there. He's a small business owner. His wife told me that he used to go to Masjid al-Nur every other Friday. And though he went the previous Friday, this Friday, he told her, for some reason, he told her, let's go. She said, well, you are not, you are not. He said, no, I want to go this Friday. I'm going to skip the next one. He went there and he never came out, So subhanAllah, and there are people who were supposed to be there, and they forgot something, they were late. So there were people sitting there. We went to visit this brother. We learned that Brother Khalid may be still is alive. So from Dr. Fazl, he helped identify all the bodies. And by the way, one amazing thing is how the community came together. So real quick, so I asked Dr. Fazl, I said, is this brother alive? He said, yeah, he's a Palestinian brother from there. He's not, the one that passed away and people confused him with is a Saudi brother by the name of Muhsin Harbi, and his body, inshallah ta'ala, is scheduled to be buried in Baig. So subhanallah, he always wanted to go to Medina. So I said, can you put me in touch with him? So he calls him and I speak to him and I said, can we come and visit you? He said, you can come tomorrow. I said, we're going to the airport. He said, come at 11 o'clock. So we go there. And subhanallah, we couldn't hide our excitement. And there was like a sense of relief, right? And he was very sad. You can see that he was broken. He was grieving, deeply hurt. Like he didn't feel fortunate or happy. So, but we couldn't, as you see, we couldn't hide it, So he told us about his story, how he would go to the masjid early for salah, and how he woke up his son, his youngest son, and said, you need to be there before the khatib starts giving the khutbah. So he said, my son didn't show up, and the khatib, said Assalamu alaikum. And I called him and I said, where are you? He said, Dad, I left the house. And then I remember that then I realized I forgot my wallet. So I went back to get my wallet. He's like, go get your wallet and come. So he went back to get his wallet. When he went back, the police had already blocked that street. And the shooting had started. And his son saw the shooter fleeing. Right? So subhanAllah, just, it wasn't, he said, had my son made it early as I wanted, my son usually sits right in the front, in the entrance, by the entrance of the musalla, right? So he said perhaps he would have been gone, or he would have confronted him or something. Subhanallah. He saw the barrel being pointed at him. He was sitting on a chair. He had an issue with his right leg, so he couldn't run. So and the killer started shooting to the left and to the right. Subhanallah. He said, I started saying shahada in my heart, thinking that I would be shot. When the first two shots went off, he said, I looked back, and then when I looked at the front, the imam disappeared. So I realized that this was real. The imam's, So, and then he said, I thought I was hit. And the shooter left to reload and come back. When he left, I realized that I wasn't hit. That's when I managed to leave the building safely.
He said, everybody to my right was shot and killed, and everybody to my left was shot and killed. And now I'm alive today. And those people I used to congregate with every Friday, I will not see them again for the rest of my life. And, these are the people of faith, deep faith and conviction. And he said, why did Allah choose them for martyrdom and not me? So he had this guilt in his heart. And he said that when the shooter came and pointed the gun in their direction, it's as if the gun or the bullet just skipped me and shot everybody to my right and left.
SubhanAllah.
And he came out harmless.
He said that Allah chose the best of us.
He said that.
So he said the best of us were gone. He
was very close to Naeem Rashid because they were to their right, the father and son.
Yeah, SubhanAllah. So he wasn't feeling very fortunate or and they all just sent one message with us. Don't forget our story. Be very, vigilant. Be strong. We're going to get through this together, right? And they didn't seem to be scared or intimidated or anything. So, quick reflections. New Zealanders have come together. This tragedy brought the best out of that country. It's overwhelming, the amount of support. Right, this is just a small corner. You need to take, just to capture the amount of flowers and letters that were laid on the streets in front of the masjid, the shop, the businesses of these individuals who were killed, the other mosques, the other side, the daycare center, the amount of flowers. You need to take perhaps at least 100 shots, images, to be able to capture all of them. This is just one side, right there. And then the morning, Friday morning, the local paper comes out, front page, salam, peace, and with the name of all of the 50 martyrs, their names to be remembered and their ages as well next to them. Brothers and sisters, there are a lot of lessons for us to learn. We were going to continue, inshallah ta'ala, having conversations about this. What happened, right? What can we learn from this? I believe that we can't get too comfortable. We have to take our these kind of events seriously. We have to take our safety and security seriously. But ultimately, our safety and security is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And even if something was to happen to us, right? Qadar, nothing, having iman, having a strong connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will get you through anything. The greatest lesson I learned from this was that having strong relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will get you through anything. It's one of two things. What? قُلْ هَلْ تَرَبَّصُونَ بِنَا إِلَّا إِحْدَى الْحُسْنَيْنِ. It's either you have a strong relationship. If it's your time, then it's your time. and you will be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَلَئِن مُتُّمْ أَوْ قُتِلْتُمْ لَإِلَى اللَّهِ تُحْشَرُونَ. It is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're going to go, right? And the believer's ultimate, wish is to be reunited and, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be welcomed by Allah Azza wa Jal. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ أَحَبَّ لِقَاءَ اللَّهِ أَحَبَّ اللَّهُ لِقَاءَهُ. Whoever longs to meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala longs to meeting him, right? And if it's not, then if we are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we will be preserved and protected by Allah Azza wa Jal. And the one element that we want to be preserved and protected the most is our faith, our iman, our belief in Allah, our certainty, right? Our spiritual and mental and emotional wellness is very, very important. And iman plays a big role in helping us maintain that. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to preserve us and protect us and protect all of our communities and institutions, our community members. I want to open it up for any questions that you may have, inshallah. We have about 20 minutes of questions, inshallah.
I think before we open it up, I think it's really necessary for us to acknowledge the New Zealand, the New Zealanders, the Muslims and the non-Muslims, the citizens of that country. They were just amazing. I mean, the amount of courtesy, the amount of hospitality, just randomness. It was just amazing. And the leader of that country, the prime minister, from the citizens, the lay people, the taxi drivers, the people, just amazing. And I think there's many lessons learned. And we hope to see, the same come about, inshallah, from the leadership of our country, inshallah, very soon. Hopefully Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides them and makes them more empathetic as they should be. And they find a good example in the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Ameen. So does anyone have any questions?
The question is that did we get a chance to visit the family of Haji Dawood Nabi, who was the first victim of this killer? And yes, we met the entire family.
Yes.
At the graveyard. Amazing. He leaves behind his wife, children, grandchildren, and we met them. And in particular, afterwards, Dr. Sobo and another Sheikh, Sheikh Abdurrahman Wahid from Michigan, they actually went to their house. Afghan hospitality is very well known, and they were so adamant that we had to split up, and they just wanted people to come to their house just to be with them. So Dr. Sobo and Sheikh Abdurrahman Wahid went and spent time with that family, while myself and Sheikh Mohammed Faqih and Imam Omar Suleiman were at the hospital visiting people who were still recovering. So yes.
Yes. It's amazing family. They kept them until midnight. Almost midnight. Yes. Yeah. I put this picture just in case anyone has any question about this brother. I didn't watch these videos, so I'm not sure. But now we have contacts and connections. I'll be more than happy to ask if he's well and if everything is okay. Yeah. Subhanallah. Yeah. Yes. Wa alaikum assalam. Oh, yeah. Government help and people, what kind of help are they getting?
Right. So there are many. The question is, how are the families of the victims being helped? Is that the question? Right. So there are organizations on the ground there. In particular, the Federation of Islamic Associations of New Zealand, FIANZ, They're coordinating a lot of relief efforts there as well. Much props, and I want to acknowledge the presence of ICNA and Helping Hands. They were with us throughout the entire trip, and there are avenues through which they are helping, along with the amazing government of New Zealand. They have the system in place, and they are being helped, and help is being trickled down. Just locally, New Zealanders amongst themselves have raised over $7 million, and here in the U.S., through Launch Good, the campaign that's been pushed nationally here in the U.S., they've raised over $2 million, and we've all been assured that all that money will be soon making its way to the families of the victims and the survivors and the children who have been orphaned, or the wives who have been widowed, or husbands who have lost their wives and significant others. Children, they'll all be assisted, and I think the New Zealand government has taken it upon themselves to be exemplary in this, and they want to show the world exactly how to take care of people who have been affected in such a way. So I think everything will be taken care of, but we look forward, if you can follow ICNA and Helping Hands on social media, they're constantly posting updates, and some charities from Australia as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the what can we do as a community is one, continue to tell their stories, try to get in touch with family members, provide support. Social media is a great way to reach out. Also, I would urge you, inshallah ta'ala, I would urge our community, inshallah azza wa jal, to visit New Zealand. Visit the city, visit the country, make sure that you visit the city of Christchurch. Make sure that you visit the community there, right? It's an amazing community. New Zealand is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It makes California look bad, right? It's not polluted, it's fresh. Shaykh Nomaan keeps come to asking me, what is it? I mean, it's just so fresh. The people there are the nicest people. I've been to parts of Europe, I've been to Canada, I've been to different parts but I've been to Singapore, New Zealanders are just exceptionally amazing people. Even their youth, they're very calm. Especially the city of Christchurch. Death toll due to homicide, like the annual death toll in the entire country of New Zealand is 48. Murders, yeah. I said homicide. Yeah. So murders, 48 people max die. That's like the average. The ones that died in the two mosque shooting exceeded that number, right? So to them this was, I said to them, this looks like your 9/11, right? This is their 9/11, except that the target or all the victims were Muslim, right? So the mosque was being opened when we were on our way to the airport. We couldn't stop. We were running late but it was reopened, and they prayed in it. And they were very anxious to go back. This is another thing that really got, like they were very anxious to go back. This is not and as the Shaykh said it, right? We are heartbroken, but we are not broken, right? And I think this is a great, this should be the motto of any believer, right? You can get to me, you can hurt my feelings, but you can't take what defines me. That's my faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't break me, you can't take that away. Similar to what one of the great scholars of Islam said, what can our enemies do to us? They can nothing, right? They can't. You can put me in prison, but you can't take my iman away from me. Either you give up your own iman, or you allow shaitan to take it away from you. So anyways, the community needs emotional help. So and people to go there and visit and connect with them, inshallah. And we can continue to have these conversations, inshallah. Shaykh Nomaan and I promised them that we're going to visit them again, inshallah ta'ala. I personally made some promises, and inshallah I intend to keep them, inshallah. Brothers are not asking any question. Yes?
You talked about the exceptional examples that you met My question was, I think you've answered it already, but it's about the level of intimidation or level of fear that people have about continuing to practice and continuing to really show their identity and being as strong Muslims and attending, Friday prayers normal and practicing normal.
Yeah. Here. You know what one of the brothers said there? I forgot what it was, but actually multiple people said this is the best time to be Muslim. That's what the New Zealander, like our brothers and sisters in New Zealand, are saying. It's the best time to be a Muslim. Brother. Here.
Testing. Yeah, there's no intimidation, no fear whatsoever. A country which in solidarity with the Muslims on Friday, I didn't see, well, I did see a few, but majority of the women on that day on Friday, Muslims or non-Muslims, were all wearing headscarves, including the Prime Minister and the police officers. So a country in which solidarity is so important and so integral, there is no fear of practicing or doing anything that might symbolize that you're Muslim when the country is like that, when the leadership is like that. And it just trickles down. So it all starts from the leadership. And this community is a resilient community. I haven't seen resilience at that level. Yeah, she said today we're all Muslims, So the newspaper, everything, it's just, the outpour of support was, I've never seen anything like this. Nor do I ever want to see in my lifetime a massacre as such. But whatever I've seen in my life, which is not much, and whatever I've seen of this tragedy was devastating, but how they are responding is unparalleled, There's a lot of lessons to learn.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the 15th of March is going to become a national day of remembrance, and perhaps maybe also a national day of hijab in New Zealand, just to commemorate and remember and honor the victims of the shooting, the massacre of Christchurch. Yeah.
MashaAllah. Did you meet the gentleman you showed the picture of, the one that was rather famous?
Which one was that? This one? Yes, we met him. MashaAllah. This brother, Abdulaziz, we saw him and his sons, and he was just so active, right? Making sure he gives a shoulder to every single body. Mind you, what was startling was we saw brothers who just buried their loved ones minutes before, and immediately afterwards, they started helping the other burial, right? We saw youth with shovels digging graves all day, 9 a.m. They're doing this for themselves. If you want to see a community come together, you go to Christchurch and see how they're supporting, right? We're visiting people's homes, and rather than accepting visitors to come and console them, they have plans to go to each other's homes, right? So they're growing from this. So this brother Abdulaziz, he was active everywhere, He was everywhere. And mind you, the imam of this masjid, Linwood, after I met him a couple of times, then the third time he asked me, what's my name? I told him my name is Nomaan Baig. And he asked me, did you go study at Jamia bin Noria? I'm like, yes. He goes, well, I studied at Jamia bin Noria as well. Imam Abdul Latif Dhikrullah turned out to be an alma mater of mine, where I studied in Pakistan. And he's the one, the African-American, not African-American, he's African New Zealand. I don't know how you say that, but he's a Nigerian native who studied in Pakistan, who was the imam of the Linwood Mosque in this picture, who has that bloodied shirt, qamis, the garb he was wearing, though he wasn't injured. In fact, he told us, actually he just started speaking to the media. He actually went out behind Abdulaziz to go attack the the shooter, right? And
By the way, he wasn't leading the salah. I made a mistake. Someone else was leading the
oh, okay, yeah. So, and he's the one who told his congregation when they saw the shooter from the window, because the shooter didn't make it inside the Linwood Mosque. He was shooting from outside. He's the one who told people to duck, and those that didn't duck were the ones who got shot from outside while they were praying in the inside. And amongst those victims, right, we didn't talk about her yet, but Linda Armstrong, 62-year-old native of New Zealand, been a Muslim for many years, was a contributor to the establishment of the Linwood Masjid. And another sister, she actually confronted, there's stories about it, I haven't been able to verify it, but she was able to confront the shooter, asking him, why are you doing this? And he shot her point blank. Another sister in that same masjid, I'm not recollecting the name, but she was shot and she was crawling out the window, and she yelled out to the killer, saying, help, help, and he helped her by shooting her. You see? So this was a ruthless person, and I can't use adjectives that come to our mind sometimes, but we won't stoop to that level because we have a higher standard of... Brother Abdul Aziz, yes. Amazing brother.
SubhanAllah, Shaykh Nomaan, called me. He said, Brother Abdul Aziz, we found him. Actually, no, SubhanAllah. The Imam Abdul Latif, he's like, you have to meet this brother. He insisted. And he brought him. He's like, you need to come and meet these people. They came all the way from America. And just the humility of this brother. He wasn't thinking of himself as a hero or someone that, I'm not a hero, I just did what I did. I just said the real heroes are the ones that gave up their lives, the ones that died. Because there are some people who made attempts to actually tackle him, but, AR-15 is, a very powerful weapon, and it's the bullets are faster than their move, so they couldn't get in time. It just Abdul Aziz happened to be close enough and quick enough to think while the shooter was changing the clip of his rifle, he threw a credit card machine at him, which startled him, and then he tackled him, took him down, and took the rifle from him, and that's when he fled on foot. They actually had the rifle with them without a clip, without any bullets in it. And when you meet Brother Abdul Aziz, you realize why he was able to do that. MashaAllah, well built, And this is another message we got, from some of them, that we need to take care of ourselves. We need to get in shape, brothers and sisters. We need to get in shape, right, and make sure that we take our this part seriously, because again, as I said earlier, I hope that word sums it up. We can't get too comfortable, right? As believers, we can't just get too comfortable. We can't take everything for granted, right? So he happened to be there. I was telling him, I said, SubhanAllah, we either have strong security systems in our masajid, or we get people like Abdul Aziz, plenty of them, just to be around. SubhanAllah. Yes.
What's the brother at the Noor Masjid or the Linwood Masjid?
Linwood. He's a business owner close to the Linwood Masjid. Yeah.
Is he attending the prayer?
Yes. You see, what happened is when they started shooting, Imam Abdul Latif, the Imam, was not actually leading the salah. And they were in the second rak'ah when the shooting started. He spotted him. He spotted the shooter, so he told everyone to duck, and people were just all over the place. So they interrupted their salah, right? So they cut up, they went after him. And alhamdulillah, 5 minutes later, when he fled the scene, as they reported it to the police, he was captured. Otherwise, his next stop could have devastated that community completely. Like it would have shattered and destroyed that community, because in the Noor Masjid, he was actually aiming at, he didn't spare the children. We met a family from West Africa. I forgot the exact country. SubhanAllah, the father, the mother, and the wife, his wife and his daughter were there. And as they were trying to flee, the father, blocked he took a shot in his back, right? So a lot of heroic stories of people and what they did. Sister Hasna, as I told you, she helped get the kids away, and then she came back to save her disabled husband who was on a wheelchair, and that's when the killer aimed at her and shot her. This is at the Linwood Masjid. That's the sister I think Shaykh was referring to, 45-year-old sister. Amazing. Her husband was there, so full of grace, mashallah. He's like, I'm not angry at the killer. I forgive. His wife was a heroine. I mean, it's just amazing. So when you see and you meet the women of that community, you know why that community is so special. Subhanallah. When you see these mothers and wives and daughters and sisters and educators and actives, it's amazing. A lot of dignity, dedication, and the strength. May Allah bless them. Inshallah ta'ala. We'll take one last question, inshallah ta'ala, and we'll conclude. Inshallah. Any question? Yes, please.
Did you find that there were any other communities or in the U.S. or in the other countries also, being as concerned as you were for the welfare by, making the journey over there?
Right. So first and foremost, me and Shaykh Faqih, we just went representing ourselves. It's really noble of you to think that we were representing you, but we just went ourselves. We saw people there that arrived from there was a delegation there from Europe. There were people there from Canada. We saw people there from Australia, Sheikh Yahya Ibrahim. Many people from the Muslim organizations in Sydney. We saw people there also from Malaysia and Singapore. But people are pouring in, and that community needs a lot of help. They're not as resourceful as far as mental health professionals, grief counselors, and things of that nature. We're trying to work with organizations here nationally, Muslim organizations in particular, who can probably send a delegation of mental health professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, because when the cameras go away and all the guests who are there in town to provide support go away, things will start to sink in. And they will need all the help they can get. Yes, they are resilient, but there are realities that they need to negotiate in their own lives. And we are trying to work and inform organizations here in the U.S. who can send delegations there. From an educational and spiritual standpoint, myself, Shaykh Faqih, Imam Umar Sulaiman, we're trying to coordinate to see if we can take programs there on a weekend and things of that nature, because the leaders of the youth were killed by this killer, So they are lacking support. Even the imams, Imam Jamal and Imam Abdul Latif, they're the shepherds of that community, but they're shattered inside. You see? Sometimes you cry so much that you just go dry. And, we pray for these people. And we want them to recover. We want them to be more resilient and come back stronger. Islam now can only thrive over there. And whatever we can do, and this is why the best thing we can do, if we can support them financially, we should do that. We should pray for them. If you want to send something, I'm sure ICNA, Helping Hands, Islamic Relief, the Islamic Relief representative from Australia was there. So they're all thinking of short-term and long-term plans. But I think this tragedy, one thing it's done, because it was more in the Western world side of things, there's more accessibility. And inshallah, I hope these organizations come through, and myself and Shaykh Faqih and Imam Omar look forward to going back there probably in the summer, once or twice more before the end of the year, and just being with them, now that we feel we've made a relationship with them, and we want to see whatever good can come about, inshallah.
Yeah, Sheikh Nomaan, Jazakallah khair, he sponsored me and himself, mashallah, Jazakallah khair. Sheikh Nomaan realized that I really wanted to go last Sunday, exactly a week ago. I told Sheikh Nomaan, I think I need to go there. So it's like, let's go, you and me. And that's when the whole thing started. And he made the reservation. Shaykh Nomaan doesn't waste time, mashallah, may Allah bless him. But I wanted to say that if there's one more point that is very critical and key, and I wanted to leave this to. Is there any other question? Okay, yeah. Yes, we met with the
How is he doing?
you know, subhanAllah, I was just thinking when we were speaking, you know, he gave the khutbah, and it was a very tough thing to do, right? Because the imam saw everything that happened in his masjid, in his musalla. He saw and heard everything, right? The killer couldn't see him because he was behind the minbar, right? And the minbar is solid, right? So he felt, you know, he ducked under the minbar, but he saw everything. He witnessed everything. You know, one of his community members told me that the first day when he came out, he couldn't speak, right? The next day when he started speaking, they were all relieved. They were all happy that he regained his ability to speak. And then for him to give that powerful speech on the next Friday, the very next Friday, that's you know. So, but I don't know what it's going to be like for him when he has to stand on the same pulpit next Friday, this coming Friday. May Allah help him. That's not going to be an easy thing to do. So, yeah. So, and I tell you, some of these people were not very happy and thrilled that they were alive and then they made it, because their loved ones, their friends, their neighbors, people that they had a lot of respect for and love for, didn't make it. So they didn't look, you know, they didn't, when people congratulated them, they didn't feel good about that, right? They were thankful and grateful, right? But they're like, it's just not my time. So one thing that I wanted to say is that I felt also obligated because I'm an American. I'm an American citizen. The rhetoric and the positions and the policies of the man, that whether we like him or not, whether we accept him or not as president, he is still our president. His rhetoric and has excited this far left white supremacist ideology. And I felt responsible in a way. And I wanted to go to the people of New Zealand. I was telling New Zealanders, right, because I'm sorry for what happened. As an American, I'm telling you I'm sorry. And they're like, no, we're sorry for what happened to your community, right? Because they realize that we're one community. So I didn't personally read or analyze the manifesto of the killer, but it's written all over it. People gave me some of their a summary, and this is a reminder that this kind of rhetoric is very dangerous. It's very dangerous, and people who are behind this need to be held accountable, right? And this type of hate speech needs to come to an end, and it's a threat to all of us. It's a threat to human race, not one particular race or races, but human race, right? To the global peace. And that's why now that we were hit, we Muslims were hit by this directly. When other communities were hit, some of us cared, some of us didn't care, right? But it finally came, made its way. And we were told, sooner or later it's gonna come, you know? Yeah, first time it was a synagogue, or it was a temple. You know, sometimes people can't tell the difference between Muslims and Sikh. The Sikh community in New Zealand came through. They had people helping Muslims in ghusl, washing the bodies of their dead. They came to the funeral. We saw them with our own eyes, right? They were very respectful, very supportive. They went to masajid. Their wives put on their scarves and they went to masajid to support the Muslim community, right? So Sikh temples were targeted, right? Synagogues were targeted. Churches were targeted. Black churches were targeted, right? And we didn't think that we're gonna. And then eventually it came to us. Yes, it wasn't in this country, but it was somewhere where the killer thought he can cause more damage and run away. And by the way, they said that he was traveling around looking for soft targets, right? This was well planned, not well planned, evil plan, right? Death by appointment. So this is a very dangerous rhetoric, and we're right here in the midst of it. We're in the forefront. We're in the front line. We can't pretend like this is not us, you know. This is us. This is you and me. The message was sent to all of us, to the entire ummah. So we need to, with everything that we have, the power that we have, whether it's a voting power or financial or organizing, we need to be in the forefront and fight this together. And we need to put our hands in the hands of those decent human beings, men and women, whether it's of other faith groups or people, to combat this this global threat, right? And make sure that we push this. We have to, right, make big noise. We can't let the press or media forget what happened to the people, the Muslims, the people of New Zealand, and particularly the Muslims of New Zealand. We can't let the world forget the 50 who were martyred. We can't. We will have to push this. We will have to continue to do this. We have to continue to go there, make a big deal out of it, right? As a matter of fact, inshallah ta'ala, I'll make an announcement, right? I'm going to organize, inshallah azza wa jal, next year. We don't do annual remembrance and all of that. Yes, I understand it's not a sunnah and it's not a religious practice, right? But as a political and symbolic gesture, and 15th of March, inshallah azza wa jal, Shaykh Nomaan and I will be in Christchurch, inshallah ta'ala, of 2020, inshallah ta'ala. Right? So we need to continue to do this. Send us strong messages. Next time you go for Umrah, or you go for Hajj, offer dua. Offer, social media is a very powerful tool. It doesn't hurt. You make an extra Umrah for one of the deceased, someone that you connect with. Learn their stories, know about them, send a message or send a picture to their family and say this Umrah was on behalf of your loved one, of so and so. Right? And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them. Continue to pray for them, inshallah ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you. It's to be continued, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Walid, would you like to say something? Okay, jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.